So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, How to Write a Successful MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship Proposal. My name is Samrat Kumar. I am the country coordinator of Eurexis in India. And it's a great pleasure for us to organize this webinar for you. And also we are happy to see so many of you joining, not only from India, but also from South Asia and other parts of the world, including Europe. That proves to us that the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship is very popular. As you know, the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowships are one of the best funded in the world, enabling researchers and scientists from all over the globe to conduct their postdoc research in Europe at a European host institution. The goal of the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship is to enhance the creative and innovative potential of researchers who are holding a PhD and who wish to acquire new skills to advance training, international, interdisciplinary, and intersectoral mobility. Today, we will give you some very useful insights and tips from our guest speakers on how to draft a good application for the postdoctoral fellowship. It is my pleasure to welcome our speakers of today's session. I would like to start with Dr. Bedana Bapuli. She's a legal advisor and senior EU expert at the Austrian Academy of Sciences Grant Service. Welcome, Bedana. Nice to have you back with us.
Good morning. Good afternoon for you. Thank you for inviting me again, and it's a pleasure to be virtually in India.
So Dr. Bapuli supports researchers tailoring funding portfolios and developing EU projects with a focus on the MSCA and the European Research Council. Dr. Bedana Bapuli holds also a degree in law from the University of Graz, and she studied comparative law in India. So that's also your India connection, as I can see from your biography. And I also would like to welcome her dear colleague, Ms. Therese Lindahl. She's MSCA National Contact Point at the Austrian Promotion Agency. Therese, welcome again. Thank you for being part of this webinar also.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone.
So Therese has been acting as a national contact point and expert in the program committee for the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions since actually the FP7 2006. And since 2011, she is external lecturer at the Department of Nutritional Science at the University of Vienna with a seminar on third-party research funding and EU policies. It also gives me great pleasure to welcome our MSCA fellows from India. We actually have invited two of them. Dr. Nana Sahib Thorat, who will join us in a short while, but we have Dr. Chandana Basu Malik with us. She's a Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance Early Career Fellow at the Center for Genetic Disorders at the Banaras Hindu University, India. Dr. Chandana, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you. It's great to be interacting with everyone.
Thank you. She did her PhD in molecular biology from the University of Tartu in Estonia, and her postdoc training was at University of Edinburgh in the UK. So this is this very exclusive panel for you today, and I promise you, you will really get that kind of input and support you were maybe looking for in the preparation for applying for this MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship call 2021. So now I would like to give the floor to Bedana. We're very much looking forward to your presentation. And let me just quickly make your presentation available. Just hold on for a second, sorry. See, now I have to make my, oops. Okay, I have to make myself a presenter. And let's open your presentation. Here we go. Yeah, that's the one.
Thank you so much, Samrat, for taking care of this. Welcome everybody again. It's my pleasure to guide you in the next couple of minutes through the proposal for a postdoctoral fellowship application. My presentation is divided into 4 chapters. Next slide, please. And we're first looking into very briefly what is the funding scheme all about, because this general information might be very useful for you to keep that in mind. What is it really that the European Union wants to fund when it opens calls for postdoctoral fellows? Then we zoom into the template of the proposal itself, and I'll provide some hopefully useful information on what to put where in especially the B1 part of the proposal. Last but not least, we'll also zoom out again and look into some cross-cutting issues that are involved in all EU funding, because they refer to the strategic program of the European Union and broader goals it wants to achieve by funding the best researchers as well. Finally, we will have the opportunity to address questions you may still have, and we will now start with the general outcome that the EU expects when it invests money in postdoctoral fellows. What does it want to achieve? It wants next slide please, increased set of research and transferable skills and competences that researchers inquire to develop their career perspectives to improve their employability within academia and beyond academia. Furthermore, it wants to support and invest in new mindsets, new approaches to research and innovation, forged through interdisciplinary, intersectoral, and of course international experience that you gather with such a mobility grant. And it wants to strengthen networking and communication capacities within the scientific community, but also beyond, communication to the general public that will increase and broaden still more the research and innovation impact that you generate with your research. It also looks into expected outcomes for the research organizations that are going to host you. And this grant that you apply for should, at the end, of course, also support, next slide, the quality, the sustainability of training and supervision in host institutions, make them globally thus more attractive and visible, to have an improved HR capacity, a better transfer of knowledge, and to obviously also widen international and intersectoral collaboration opportunities. I do not want to go into details about what it needs in terms of eligibility, because I'm pretty confident that you dedicated thoughts on these mobility rule, that you choose already a supervisor, and that you are aware of the duration of the fellowship itself. So the slides are there. If you want to have a closer look, you may find some more information in the next 2 slides that I will not go into. I'll just focus on one point, and that is the career development that I have already mentioned. It is at the center of this grant, of this fellowship, that supports your training, your transferable and scientific skill development. So you need to dedicate really thoughts on what career development goals are you up to achieve, and they will later on in the course of the implementation of the grant be written down in a so-called career development plan as well. Dedicate thoughts to secondments that you can undertake during these 12 to 24 months of fellowship duration. Up to 1/3 of the duration of the whole duration of your fellowship can be spent at a secondment host institution worldwide. So I summarized in slide number 8 the timetable. The deadline has been shifted. You are aware of that, to the 12th of October. So a couple of days are left. And the recommended reading is summarized in slide 9 of my presentation. Please do consult the program guide of Horizon Europe. Look into the work program to understand the concept of what the funding agency wants to fund, wants to attract to Europe. Furthermore, there's the guide of applicants that guides you through to the essential necessities of the application, and use the templates that are available in the EU funding and tender portals. There are some comments, there are some hints in as to what to fill into these templates, and also the formal criteria required to fill in the templates and to finalize the proposal. If we now look into what is the proposal itself composed of, it is composed of several parts. Part A gives more formal forms and gives information on the researcher, on the organization and their role, etc. But we will focus, and I continue with slide 12, on B1, the scientific part, which is composed of 3 chapters, basically dedicated. The chapter number 1 dedicated to excellence, dedicated to impact is chapter 2 of the proposal, and chapter 3 of this part, B1, is dedicated to the implementation. And then there's also a part B2 where you will present your CV with an indicative length of around 5 pages. But now we will look into really B1 in the details, in the essential information that you need to structure and provide. And if we can shift now to slide 15, please, which dedicates some information on the quality, on chapter 1.1 of part B1, the excellence part of the proposal, dedicated to the quality and pertinence of the project's R&I objectives. So what you need are really crystal clear objectives. You need to answer the questions: are these objectives measurable and verifiable? And how? Come to the point very quickly. Tell the evaluator what is your innovative idea. Why is it innovative? How does the project idea go beyond state of the art? To what extent is it ambitious and feasible to carry it out in a maximum of 24 months? And what is the ideas, the project's relevance and contribution to the advancement of your scientific field. So here the objectives are in the center of the attention. Then, if we look into the second subchapter of chapter 1, B1, it's the soundness of the proposed methodology that you need to confer to the audience. Explain the methods, explain the concepts, explain the models you're going to use in achieving the project's objectives. How will these help to deliver on the objectives? Are there any challenges that you will face, and how will you deal with these challenges? Interdisciplinary approaches are certainly an asset, are certainly welcomed, but here do make sure to convince the audience, the evaluators, on how you are going to apply new methods to your field, methods from another research discipline possibly, and how this will be carried out in detail, as we assume it's a novel interdisciplinary approach that you're going to take. If there is a scientific gender dimension inherent to your research question, to your method, then please state it very clearly. Gender is a cross-cutting issue, and if it is a research question, or research questions do also imply a gender or a diversity aspects, then do explain what are these aspects, and if they should not matter, then justify why. Open science practices are certainly to some extent mandatory and to some extent increasingly important. Mandatory in the sense that you need to openly make your publications openly accessible, but also that you need to publish and make openly accessibly the data you are going to collect and to manage. Explain in these methods that you're applying how you're going to share and manage research outputs. If this is the case, you are going to engage citizens, and there are various ways of doing so, the civil society, where it is appropriate. Next is the chapter dedicated to the quality of supervision, the quality of the training, and the two-way transfer of knowledge. So in this chapter 1.3, you are going to explain the qualifications and experience of the supervisor. You are going to tell the evaluator about his experience in the field, his international, interdisciplinary, intersectoral collaborations that are ongoing, or fundings and coordinations he's or she's been dealing with in the past, awards the supervisor has been given, and please do also mention the supervisory experience of your future supervisor. So in this specific subchapter, you should closely interact with your future supervisor and get input from her side. The role of the supervisor needs to be addressed in this chapter as well. How will progress in the project be monitored? How often are you going to meet? How will the so-called career development plan be set up and implemented? What will be the role of a potential co-supervisor if you opt for a secondment? And what's the rationale and an added value of a non-academic placement if you plan any? How will the mode of supervision look like? How often will you meet? Will the supervisor be available to the extent you need him, her, for the supervision of your career development? Training is an essential part in this chapter, and you need to be very specific on the training activities you're planning to have. The scientific aspects as well as management, organizational skills that you're going to develop and widen, and also transferable skills you intend to acquire or further develop. Research skills are certainly in the center of your attention, that goes without saying, but do not neglect also the additional skills you can acquire and should acquire for a better employability. So training through research under the guidance of the supervisor should be described, and how will the supervisor and his, her research team, also the secondment supervisor, enable you, the future fellow, to develop core research skills, what development training courses are available in your host institutions, what new techniques, new instruments you will learn to handle, what new methods, research methods will you engage with, be it scientific writing, be it working with big data, being experienced in open science. All these advanced research skills should be addressed carefully. The training chapter should also, as I said, look into what transferable skills you acquire, be it project management, organizational, leadership, networking skills, but also trainings, specific trainings dedicated to IPR management, data management, or gender and diversity training. Then you should explain how the transfer of knowledge from and to the future host institution looks like. So let us start with the transfer of knowledge you will have from the host institution. What expertise, techniques, research skills of the fellow will be applied to the research in the future host institutions? Who will be the audience? Who will be the research team in the host institution you're going to transfer your experience and your know-how that you will be bringing into the new host institution? How will this knowledge be transferred, and what is the benefit to the host institution? And then the second side of the coin is obviously the transfer of knowledge that will flow to the host institution, what new expertise, techniques, research skills the fellow will gain by working at the new host institution, and how, and here you need to be specific, will these transfer of knowledge that you will gain at the host institution be acquired. The next chapter, 1.4, and here we are now at slide 12 of the presentation, addresses the quality and appropriateness of the researcher's professional experience, competences, and skills. The quality and appropriateness of existing professional experience in relation to the proposed project has to be highlighted in this chapter. So what have you done? What so far? What is your existing professional experience that qualifies you to carry out this proposed project? And here, please reflect and balance well with the information that you'll be providing in the CV part B2. Highlight relevant achievements and competences in this part. Now let us turn to the second big chapter of the proposal, and this is dedicated to the impact your research and your fellowship is going to have. So here in chapter 2.1, describe in a credible way the measures that enhance your career perspectives and your employability and the contribution to the skills you're going to develop. Here, focus on what you will have learned during the 24 months of fellowship. State what skill development you are expected to have. What is the expected impact in terms of skill development? What is the expected impact of your research activities, of your training activities on your career perspectives inside as well as outside of academia? Then look into the next subchapter 2.2 on the suitability and quality of the measures to maximize the expected outcomes and impacts as set out in the dissemination and exploitation plan, and include also communication activities. And here the researchers are sometimes tempted to neglect a bit the details. Here you are really requested to be very specific. What are you going to disseminate to the academia, to the academic audience? Obviously, paper contributions, contributions in conferences, but how can results you're generating also be exploited in future internal collaborative research, in engaging with stakeholders and policymakers, in the generation and management of intellectual property? What social media channels to academic audiences are available to disseminate your know-how and your research? Please consider that these measures should be proportional to the duration and to the extent of your research, and should be carried out not only during but also after the end of the project. And then in chapter 2.2, you're also addressing communication plans you're having. These communication addresses not primarily the scientific audience, that's the dissemination part, but the wider audience, or the defined target non-expert audience that you intend to address. And here, do not only think about one way of communicating your research and your research results, but there are also two ways of exchange with non-expert audiences that could be included meaningfully into your proposal. When it comes to communication activities, also gender aspects may play a role, and you might wish to address especially young girls or specific audiences with your communication activities. look also into what outreach activities the host institution so far provides, and then that will also provide useful information that you can take aboard on this communication chapter. Chapter 2.3 is dedicated to the magnitude and importance of the project's direct contribution to the expected scientific, societal, and economic impacts. So here you need to specify what impact beyond the immediate scope of answering research questions and beyond the duration of the project can be generated with your research and training. What scientific advances across or within your discipline do you expect or can you imagine? What new knowledge will be created, and how will also scientific equipment or research infrastructure be reinforced by your research project and training activities? And then do also consider whether standard setting, societal impact is generated, more efficiency to certain procedures are brought into or are envisaged by your research and your new approach, or whether there could also be an economic impact in the future of your research, be it policy recommendations or improving the decision making. The implementation is the third chapter that needs to be addressed in part B2, and this consists of in subchapter 1 of a clearly structured, coherent work plan. Here are some suggestions you might wish to consider, including a work package on management, including supervision meetings, the reporting tasks, the risk assessment and management, maybe a work package dedicated to training and the transfer of knowledge is appropriate to your project. Here a deliverable would certainly be recommendable career development plan. Please try to identify certain milestones. Do not forget about the secondments, and also you might consider dedicating a specific work package to the dissemination, exploitation, and communication measures. Here, data management plans can be one of the deliverables, or a communication plan, a dissemination plan. It is very advisable or even required to include a Gantt chart that shows the duration of the project, months 1 to 24, and what happens when, how are the work packages interlinked. In the second subchapter of the big chapter 3, the implementation is dedicated to the quality and capacity of the host institution, including existing hosting arrangements. So here you need, and here's also again wise to get in touch with the future host institution and gather useful information for the description of the institution, of the team you're going to be integrated into the institution's infrastructure and facilities, but also support services the host institution may offer to you, and to describe also the quality and capacity of the host, but other participating organizations as well. They will be also described in B2 section 5. So here nothing should be duplicated, but rather meaningfully complemented. These are the 3 big chapters dedicated to excellence, with 4 subjects: to impact and to implementation, that you need to fill in. And when you do so, use the template, as I said before, but also consider cross-cutting issues. As I mentioned before, there are a couple of targets that the EU generally wants to address and to strengthen by funding. And here I named the most important practices that you should dedicate some thoughts on. First, open science practices. They include the sharing of your research output, and of the management of your research output. How can you share at an early stage your findings in preprints? Could crowdsourcing initiatives be meaningful to you? You definitely have the obligation from the grant agreement to make publications, peer-reviewed publication, openly accessible, and also to make your research data openly accessible via repositories, via databases. There's the European Open Science Cloud that could be used for providing findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable data to the scientific community and beyond. Citizen science aspects should or could be considered too. That can be co-creation activities in terms of how to specify your research and innovation agenda, and also the contents of your research. If this is applicable, then do look into the Horizon Europe guide, program guide, because here you'll find some very useful hints on what could be included into your proposal to make it more competitive by addressing these overall cross-cutting themes that are of prior interest to the European Union when it provides funding. The same holds true for responsible research on innovation. What it is about? It is about thinking about how to involve and proactively engage citizens to better align your research and innovation processes, outcomes with the real values, the real needs, the specific expectations of the European society. Why is it important? Because we shouldn't forget we are spending or using or applying for European taxpayers' money. And if we carry out research, this research output should also be in line with what is the actual need, the actual expectations of the society funding the research. So involving citizens might be an asset and also a new learning for you that's valuable for the future and for getting to the point of the needs. Gender and diversity, I've mentioned it already, matters in several dimensions. First, as a research dimension, possibly specific training activities could address gender training, diversity trainings that are offered by host institutions. Targeted communication activities could be specifically designed to address these very important topic for the EU. And then on the policy level, there is also the new requirement that from 2022 onwards, when signing the grant agreement, the host institution you are applying or you are carrying out your grant at will need to have implemented a gender equality plan. And also in part A of the proposal, you will have to tick and ask the future host institution contact whether it already has such a gender equality plan. So this will be a really hard law only from the next call onwards. Nevertheless, it is requested that you gather this information, whether it's already existing, because you will have to fill in this information. Another big issue of the European Union and its policy making refers to the European Green Deal and how can sustainable research, how can actions be sustainable, and also sustainable research project be generated. And here the new grant agreement will foresee a best effort obligation to adhere to the so-called Green Charter that is interlinked here and that aims to reduce, reuse, recycle, promote green purchasing for project-related materials, ensure the sustainability of project events, use low-emission forms of transport when traveling and you are applying for a mobility grant, promote teleconferencing whenever it's possible. And here the last year has trained us to do so, and to develop also or seek for the development of awareness on environmental sustainability measures, and also finally to share ideas and examples of good practice. So this, if this can be included to some extent into your research ideas or the implementation of your trainings, it will be good. However, all activities have to minimize the environmental impact and to reduce the footprint on the environmental footprint globally. And you will also face, if your proposal is successful, reporting duties addressing in how your research project addressed these obligations, these recommendations laid down in the Green Charter. That's it for the moment as to the core information I wanted to pass on to you, and I would like now to give you the opportunity to ask questions. Am I still on air?
Yeah, here I, sorry, just took me a second to put on the camera and the microphone. But Anna, thank you so much for a very well-structured and excellent presentation. And you very clearly pointed out what are the important aspects the EU is looking here when they are about to fund young researchers from across the world under the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship. I think it was really, as I said, very well structured and very insightful. It's actually very happy that you have, we have now time for a dedicated Q&A session, and already questions are coming in. So let's straight go into it. The first question is, where can one find those templates? Is there any website we can find these templates?
Yes, you will have my slides, and there will be one link, and this link refers to the EU tenders and funding portal. This is actually the portal where you will submit your proposal, where you will find the templates that you have to fill in, and where all guidance documents are summarized. The work program, the Horizon program guide, the guide for applicants, etc. So all useful information is compiled there on the funding and tender portal, and the link is included in slide number, let me have a look. And on this page, there's also a frequently asked questions section, by the way, and link is here under FAQ. So it's interlinked already. And on the slide dedicated to recommended reading, you should also have the link that opens up the way to all these documents that I have recommended for reading. And I really encourage you to flip through the pages, because you then only grasp what do they want. You get so much more detailed information that I could provide in the limited time given with regard to open access, to dissemination, etc. So it's really worth to grasp the idea behind, because if you grasp these ideas, that will certainly make your proposal more competitive.
Yeah, and we will also share the presentation of Vedana in our follow-up email, and so you will have all the information of her presentation with you, and also the links will be made available for you. A further question which came in is, you spoke also a lot about the gender aspect, the importance to include gender in the research, the diversity, even like from next year onwards, there will be even a stronger focus on gender. But what to do, like let's say in life sciences, if the gender aspect is not relevant, how to still include, like any tips on that? If it's a field, a research field where gender is not really one of the main aspects or relevant.
In the life sciences first, thank you for this very important question. First of all, gender aspects might very well play a role, and I also want to enhance or give you food for thought, and to think about maybe it works differently, or developing some medicine. Does it have the same implications for female or male patients? I mean, there are many ways where it plays a role in life sciences, obviously. But if it does not in your specific research proposal, then please state it clearly why it is not the case, because the focus of your proposal is, and you can take the gender aspect aboard in different ways, like in communication measures, for instance. So you don't have to force it. You don't have to force it, right? You can also do a gender training, gender and diversity training, and that's also a skill development goal that you can address, and thereby address the gender issue if it is not a research question that you want to address, because it's not in the scope of your research. But then just say it and consider letting it flow in from another perspective.
I think very well said. Like, don't force it, but refer and address it. You know, if it doesn't play a relevance, then explain why it doesn't. And you know, and as Vedana said, for sure, it plays relevance in all fields of research, even in life sciences, right?
And by the way, if I may, the program guide on page 16, so the Horizon Program Guide contains a nice chapter on the gender dimension, so that can give you inspiration. There are also a lot of links referring to projects that have been dealt with these issues, so they can inspire you and looking into gender and artificial intelligence or whatever it might be. So you can gain inspiration from this.
That's a very useful advice. Thank you, Vedana. Another question is regarding, you were also mentioning the importance of outreach of the research, like citizens outreach. And the question is, if main outputs are academic articles, how to include communication to citizens in general? Because academic articles, as we know, are very technical and very scientific.
Yeah, thank you for these questions. Very important question. If we speak about academic articles, about papers you write, about peer-reviewed article contributions, then this summarizes under the EU term of dissemination of results. Whereas communication has a different intention. And here I recall what I've already said. It's the taxpayers' money that is used for investing in your research. So consider thinking about what can you give the taxpayer back. Doesn't the taxpayer have the right to know about your research project, your research interim or final results? Share this know-how and find appropriate ways of doing so. This can be various ways, like giving an interview, but you need to identify what fits your personality, what fits your also taste, be it a BBC interview or talking to a local radio station, being involved in the researchers' night, being part of an open day, giving a lecture in a primary school, visiting, being part of a kids' university. There's so many activities where you can break down your top experience into the language of a targeted, and that's important, audience that you identify and that you want to address. Find the right mode and the right format for communicating your exciting activities and results to an audience that could profit or could like. If you are in the life sciences, it's very easy to attract various audiences to speak about what you are actually doing. If you work in completely different fields, also then there is the possibility that you can disseminate and spread the passion you have for your field of investigation, and also inspire younger generations to be curious and to be the future researchers.
I think wonderfully explained, and I just wanted to add on this that actually we, Euraccess India, are organizing next week on Thursday, 9th of September, a webinar on science communication. And we will have some very great science communication speakers, young and more aged, who will give you a good insight on how to develop your science communication skills, how to bring your research out of the lab to a larger audience. And we will have really some very cool people there. We will have even like somebody doing a live science slam for you. So just, we have shared the link in our chat, and I encourage you, those who are really interested, to work on develop their skills in communicating their research to a larger audience, which you also see as a part of the proposal. Join us, and I'm sure you will benefit from that. Bedana, we go on. I'm really enjoying this Q&A session with you so far. So I hope you're fine to take some more of them.
Certainly, with pleasure.
So there was a question regarding supervisor. So now we have identified a supervisor. We have, sent him our idea proposal, but now it happens the supervisor is not responding the way I want him to respond, or maybe he's out of office and time is very short, deadline is approaching. So what to do if the supervisor is not responding or not that active in the part of the proposal writing process, drafting process?
Yeah, well, I just say that you need a supervisor. It's an inherent part of this game because he is or she is supposed to guide you through a very important 24 months phase of career development. He should be your supporter, your advisor, your guide, your door opener. And it is true that this person should already be open to your question and interested in your research objectives and intentions and proposal in the application phase. Here, well, it's holiday season. That's certainly not always an excuse. If you really wait for a long time and had no clear articulation of, yes, I want you and I will support you, then maybe still now there is time to look for another supervisor. I also would like to mention that people always want to look for the top shots who already have 25 PhD candidates and 3 postdocs and are involved in hundreds, I'm exaggerating purposely, projects. So will this person really have time to guide you through this important phase of your career? And maybe it's better to look for somebody who's really interested in what you are doing and offering career guidance and scientific development, because he is not, that internationally asked for yet, or not so hyperactive that in reality he maybe cannot take another postdoc to seriously accompany through this important phase. So if it's an option to find somebody else that can also, and who's there for you and can also maybe even give you more support, then please consider this option. And what is important is that the supervisor really backs your proposal, and this is also what evaluators look into. They also look into who is going to supervise you, and if the top shot has already too many people, then will that be even, they ask the question, will he be able to take another 24 who apply now?
Yeah. Maybe at this stage we can ask Therese also to join us for the Q&A session. Therese,
yes,
if you
I'm here. I'm still here, just turning on my features here. Yes.
So because also Therese has a large experience with the MSCA program, so maybe also your take on that.
Yes, and at first, a big thanks to Bedana for the excellent presentation and answering all the questions. And I can just agree and underline what she has said so far. Of course, and it's very true what Bedana is saying. You really need the support from the supervisor. And for this reason, it's really important to get in touch with potential supervisors well in time, really very well in time before the deadline, and especially during summer it may be difficult. So maybe I go one step back, so to say. When you are looking for potential supervisors, I think it's extremely important to be very specific when you get in touch with someone. If you have the possibility to use your own networks, this is the best way often, if you have some personal connections. But I know several cases where researchers from outside, so to say, have been approaching, just doing research themselves, finding the right supervisor and getting in touch without knowing them at first. And in that case, it's extremely important to be specific, not to write some general lines to a lot of different people. This will most probably not result in a good connection. Of course, this is something you will have to start with in time. Now, at this point, if you already have selected a supervisor, so to say, and you feel that you don't have the support, it's really difficult. The question is if you can have some other connection at the host institution, for example, the grant offices, as Bedana. The well-organized host institutions, they also offer great support from the grant offices when it's about more the general questions, like, for example, which kind of services can the host institution offer. Of course, when it comes to the scientific part, you need the input from your supervisor, probably. And I would, this is maybe the very last step to take, but if you feel that you don't have any support at all, and having the new rules in mind that as from next year, there will be restrictions with regard to resubmissions, I would consider, if you feel you have no support at all, I would consider to wait and maybe submit next year. Of course, if you are still eligible at that time. It's a hard decision to take for sure, but yeah, not because I think if you don't have a good support in this phase of the application, you can question yourself, will you have the support during the project? And maybe then this is not the right person to supervise you. Of course, you need to be understanding as well. They all have a lot of things to do and are very busy, so you can not immediately expect an answer always. But yeah, again, if you don't have any support at all, then consider if you should choose another supervisor.
Thank you so much. I think very, very important advice on that. Staying with supervisors, can one include a co-supervisor outside of Europe in the proposal?
Bedana, you or me?
Yes, of course. If you have if you consider, for instance, a secondment phase, then obviously a co-supervisor is required even, yes.
And but that can be from, it can be work.
I would like to take up a question that was even asked before in written form, whether one needs a letter of commitment from this co-supervisor, and you intend to do a European fellowship, I assume, and come to Europe. This won't be a global fellowship, and therefore it's not required to have in the proposal phase such a letter of commitment. However, if you intend to have an additional placement, that's something new and that will take at the end, after the end of the project in a non-academic sector, then it would be required to have such a commitment for this additional placement phase of a co-supervisor.
Okay, great. Some more questions, of course. One is mentioning associated partners which are linked to a beneficiary. Bedana, who can be an associated partner in this context?
Yeah, here there is a new terminology, in fact, existing, and associated partners are actively participating in the project to some extent, but they are not formally partners of the grant agreement. They don't sign the grant agreement. They are not allowed to claim costs, and they appear in various forms. So if such an associated partner is involved, then they also should commit themselves to some extent. This would maybe be a case for an additional placement. Additional associated partners can also pop up in the form of linked to a beneficiary. So if apart from this proposal, a host institution is linked to another institution, a so-called associated partner linked to the host institution beneficiary, and provides services like trainings for this beneficiary, then this associated partner will be mentioned in the tables. There are tables in section 5.2, and here you have to choose and click or choose and pick which associated partner is involved. So if an institution has a linked partner that provides labs, and you will be working in these labs, or provides trainings, and you'll be benefiting from these trainings in the course of your fellowship, then please do mention it.
Okay.
And apart from that, the definition is defined in the work program, page 74 and sequential. So if you need to know more on these associated partners, please have, or more specific questions arise, then please get back to this Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions work program for the definition of.
Thank you for answering this one. Another question which we also received beforehand was about subcontracting manpower, like research assistants. Is that possible under the fellowship program?
Well, this fellowship funds the salary of the researcher and her training, research, training, networking activities, and some institutional costs also go through the host institution for hosting and managing the grant. The core research needs to be carried out by you, but support services are required, then you can make use of service contracts and get it paid or covered, the costs covered by the research, training and networking or the management costs. But here you have to, in an early stage, agree and discuss this also with the host institution, and also look into the modalities under which this is possible. So there are unit costs that will be budgeted and that will be paid for this fellowship. And one part is dedicated to the researcher's salary and her mobility, and the rest can also be subcontracted under quotation marks. Most probably it will be service contracts, I suppose.
Another question which comes up is the secondment and the collaboration with industry. Like, how important is that these days? You know, what if one only has contacts with the academia and less with the industry? Like, but is it important to show one's link to the industry as well? Maybe Therese, if you could take that question.
Yes, yes. It's a little bit like the gender issues, because if you can see any relevant aspects to or with or for industry, some possibilities to interact, or that your research may be relevant to industry and in that way also for your career development, then it's important to include. And there are, of course, different possibilities to do this. If you are in an area with very basic research that maybe is far away from any industrial aspects, then you should not force it. It should be all make sense all together. But if you look at it from evaluators' point of view, if they can see any potential industrial links, or it must not be industrial, it can be not just non-academic, so outside academia, which makes the field much wider. So not only companies, but every type of organization that is outside academia. If the evaluators can see this and you did not include it, then this will probably have a negative impact on your score. And as I said, there are different possibilities on how much you can involve or include industry. Now, since for the first time we have this possibility to have an additional placement of up to 6 months at the end of the fellowship. This is new, and this can only be in the non-academic sector in Europe. But of course, you can also have more loose cooperations within the project. So have short visits or doing trainings or other shorter secondments. So there are many possibilities, but you should definitely think about this when setting up your proposal. Can you see any non-academic relevance, and how can you include this?
Is it possible to stay the entire duration at the host institution without a secondment?
Oh yes, it is. As always, it should altogether make sense. So don't include any secondments if it does not really contribute to the research progress, the research part as such, or to your training and career development. So don't force it if it does not make sense. This will also be taken into consideration during evaluation if these secondments, if you have such, if they really contribute to the project and to your career development.
Now comes the Königsfrage. Is there a successful proposal available online, or is it possible to get one?
I know there are some, unfortunately, of course, we are not allowed to share anything, but this is also probably good for you to know, because we see a lot of proposals, but of course it's all confidential. I have seen there are some proposals online. I can check just in a few minutes if I can find some links. I think they are not very, maybe not the newest ones, but some years old. Nevertheless, I think it can be helpful to read them. Those things have changed, of course, since then. So it's extremely important to stick to the new guidelines, and of course, always to stay. I mean, the old name for these project types were individual fellowships. So always keep in mind it's your individual project, and don't make any copy pastes of anything. So this is important to keep in mind. Nevertheless, I think it can be helpful to read or for sure it's helpful to read other proposals just to see how they did it. And so when we move on to the next part, I can search. I may have some links that I can send in the chat.
Oh, great! That would be, I think, very helpful for our attendees. Bedana, you were mentioning the Gantt chart in your presentation about the time, the planning of the work. Could you explain a little bit more about that? It's one of the questions we got.
Yeah, the first thing is anything that visualizes what you intend to do helps the evaluator to see at very first sight that you have a structure and you have a plan. So a Gantt chart is one component apart from the description of the work packages in the work plan to prove that you are, if they convey you the money, ready to take off for your project venture, and that you have thought very carefully in the implementation. What is a Gantt chart? In fact, it's a timeline, 24 months, and on these timelines you reflect the work packages, the research, what research objectives, sub-research work packages will be carried out, when will certain interim milestones be achieved that allow you to carry on with the next step of your research. What is your training plan? How does it look like? When do you plan to have what training? When do you plan your secondment? When do you plan your first publication, your conference participation? When are outreach activities already planned in your host institution you intend to take part in? That you also dedicate some thoughts on the management of your grant. It will be the money that you manage. You will also discuss with your supervisor on how the costs are going to be spent. You may well also learn in terms of the financial implementation of European grants. You may don't overdo it. Don't create 6, 7, 8 work packages, small but beautiful. You have 24 months, but show you have a structure and visualize this structure.
Great, thank you. I think we'll take 2 more questions. There are quite many in the question and answer box. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, we cannot answer all of them, but I have selected 2 more, if that's okay with you both. And the next one goes to Therese. Recently, the MSCA introduced the Seal of Excellence. That means proposals which have scored very high, but were not funded due to lack of funding, or didn't make it in the top selection, get the Seal of Excellence. What does this mean for someone to get a Seal of Excellence? Are there any extra funding opportunities with that seal for researchers in Europe?
Yes, thank you for that question. Well, it depends totally on the country where your host organization is. Some countries have different types of funding of such Seal of Excellence projects, depending exactly how it looks like. Depends very much on the type of funding, if it's also coming from the EU, if it's solely national funding programs. Sometimes it's even the organizations you have been applying with that have their own funding for these projects. So it depends very much on that. There is a website from the Commission with more information which countries have such programs themselves. I can imagine that now, as we are just moving on to the new framework program, I would suspect that there are countries where this is still in progress, so that this may come new national funding possibilities in the next months. At the moment, unfortunately, we don't have it for Austria, but I think things are moving here too. So in future, we may see some new initiatives here as well.
The applicants get to know the scores, right? How much they have scored.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, one more question to Bedana. Regarding publications, like, is there a minimum amount of publications required to be, considered for the fellowship? What if one doesn't have published much yet? Like, is that kind of a disadvantage? Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, with pleasure. Obviously, the academic age is taken into consideration. So it's after the PhD award and up to 8 years of full-time equivalent research, postdoctoral researchers that can be funded. And the evaluators will take into consideration whether you have been recently awarded your PhD degree or some years ago. And also the customs of the discipline, the research discipline are taken into consideration. So it's not about only the number, but the quality of your publication, and sometimes less is more. So a peer-reviewed article where you showed you walk independent paths, you published independently, you brought to paper your innovative ideas is certainly counting a lot. And we all know how it works, publish or perish, but the evaluators will take into consideration what is impressive, taking into consideration the journals you have been published in and your academic age. So I can't give you numbers, and nobody will look for numbers.
Yes. Yeah, there are many factors playing into it, right? As you said, the amount of research experience, the years, and the quality of the journals. Okay. No, great. Thank you so much, both of you. It was really very informative and also very enjoyable to have this Q&A. And I think we could go on, but we have actually two MSCA fellows with us today who have cracked, how we say here in India, they have cracked the grant, and one of them even has cracked it twice.
Wow.
He's a 2 times MSCA fellow, and that's Dr. Nanasep Thorat, who has joined us. So I kindly ask him to come onto the screen, and let me briefly introduce him to you. So I can see him in the that he has joined, but his microphone is still muted and camera as well. So I just hope Nana Sahib, you can hear us? Are you with us? Okay, so what I suggest, I will try to contact him and see if there's a technical issue, but then I'll just give first the floor to Dr. Chandana Basu Malik, whom I already have introduced in the beginning. Chandana, you're able to hear me, and could you kindly come onto the screen? Perfect. Hi. Yeah, welcome again. And to those maybe who have joined a bit later, let me just reintroduce her to you. She is a Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance Early Career Fellow at the Center for Genetic Disorders at the Benares Hindu University in India. She did her PhD in molecular biology from the University of Tartu, Estonia, and her postdoc at the University of Edinburgh. She has been in Sklodowska-Curie individual fellowship. That was the name of the program until last year. Now it's known as the Postdoctoral Fellowship. So Chandana, we're very happy to have you. You are one of those who have gotten that grant, and we're very happy, that you can tell us a bit more about your journey as an MSCA fellow, and also what tips you would have for potential applicants for this year's call.
Thank you very much.
So I hope I'll make you a presenter now. 1 second. Now you should be able to share your screen with us.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, perfect.
And am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So welcome everyone, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to share my journey as a MSCA fellow. So it was basically 2015 call, but and the period was of my fellowship was 2016 to 2018. So before I begin with my journey, a bit of my background. So I did my bachelor's in microbiology honors and Master of Science in Biotechnology from India. And after that, I had a research experience of 3 years as a senior research fellow in one of the ICAR institutes in India. And because I had already inclined that I will be doing my PhD abroad, so I was finding, taking that time to get that right opportunity. And I did my PhD in molecular biology from University of Tartu, Estonia. So here you can see this is our Institute of Genomics, University of Tartu, Estonia. And then was the next step as a MSCA postdoctoral fellow. So when I was applying, I already had a position in University of Tartu, Estonia, although I had motivation to really go forward with my postdoc, and that made me, apply for it. So my research interest is regarding the human phenotypes. So we see a great many diversity around us. So we see people of different, skin color, and they have different features. And most of these are actually adaptations. So I'm interested in investigating the human genetic variation to find the cause of the variation, and then, go into the evolutionary past of how it occurred, to the story behind it, and also then to use this knowledge for the betterment of public health and improvement in diagnostics, prevention, and treatments. And therefore, this is regarding my MSCA project. It was titled, the acronym, you might be knowing that you need to do an acronym. So my acronym was called as HEREGEN. And my host institute was University of Edinburgh, UK. The exact institute was Roslin Institute. It was a European fellowship that had applied, and it was for 2 years. So I had applied for all the 2 years. The subject which I had applied was life sciences, and the topic was genetics of human hair form diversity. I also included some collaborators. So we had the Institute of Genetics and Molecular Medicine, University of Edinburgh, another institute of research in Edinburgh, and Penn State University, USA. I would say that I took a dedicated time of 5 weeks to write the proposal. It was my first attempt for the proposal, and it was in the same year that I had defended my PhD. So, so what did MSCA give me? Basically, in terms of research, I learned to urban around. Can you still clearly hear me?
Yes, now it should be fine.
Yeah. So MSCA gave me basically, in terms of scientific training, I had not worked on mouse models before, and Roslin Institute being the world-class institute for working on animal models, I got that exposure there. I learned more about, tissue sectioning, and I also gained more skills about the microscopy imaging. So the next, what I gained really was about the science outreach. really opened my world to science communication. I had the opportunity to work with the Easterbush Science Outreach Center, which was a part of the Easterbush campus in University of Edinburgh. And they were conducting every now and then some outreach events, and I had the opportunity to, volunteer for it and as per time allowed, and work on the projects. And we had also open days, and there was also an opportunity for being enrolled as a UK STEM ambassador. And through that, I was able to, in fact, tell to the audience or to the school students more about what project I'm doing, what is its relevance. And it was great to interact with the school students. In terms of career development, so it led to basically soft skills training. So it's, besides being researcher, there are like a lot of hats that a scientist has to wear. So basically, University of Edinburgh gave me opportunity to improve on my soft skill training, and I also had opportunity to basically attend workshops related to career development, or to listen to really great invited lectures. And I also received the social media training there as a part of my induction. It also gave me visibility as an early career researcher, and I was chosen among the 4 early career speakers in the Fisher Centenary meeting, which was a 100 years meeting conducted by the Genetics Society UK. And there was also a Scottish Biomedical Postdoctoral Researcher Conference where I was able to present my research, what I did during my MSCA. And here you can find some of the pictures of mine, very happy me doing the science communication. And the last picture you can see, this is of Sir Edward Southern, and he had luckily come to the institute, and it was a great opportunity, to meet somebody whom you have only read in the books, like who has discovered such a great experiment, but to meet in person to him and discuss with him, I found it was really a great opportunity. So I would also like to tell you what was my motivation for applying for MSCA. So one of the strongest motivation, I would say, was to work on a project of my research interest. So I had decided that following my defense, like after passing out my PhD, I would give myself 1 year to have basically an opportunity to apply of the project which I have research interest in. And therefore, it was like a dream project for me to work on what I really wanted. So it gave me the opportunity to work on my dream project in a way. It allowed me to take my career to the next level, which was postdoc after my PhD. It allowed me to learn new skills and basically, add it to my bag for my greater vision of being an independent researcher. And I strongly believe in MSCA's pillar of mobility of science, or in general of EUROSEC's like researchers in motion, because in science, actually, when you move in the field of science, you get to know about different working culture, because their working culture is different across in different countries. You get to know many things, which might help you to improve as a researcher. For example, I learned a lot about work-life balance, as there was a strong emphasis on mental health and work-life balance in University of Edinburgh. So, and it's undoubtedly the most prestigious and competitive postdoctoral fellowship available. So in my PhD, I had worked on the genetics of skin pigmentation and the genetics of lactose intolerance. This was the adaptive traits, what I had worked on. And during my PhD, I got through this idea somehow that the hair shape was bit understudied. So I had very strong interest in taking up this as my postdoc project, and therefore it was chosen as my MSCA project, ideal project, that was the genetics of human hair shape. That is, people have different hair, and we see people having straight hair, curly hair, or wavy hair, and what are the genes behind them, or what is the genetics behind people having different hair shape. Now I would like to discuss some of the important steps of the application and how to deal with them, and also contributing to some of the challenges that I faced and how I overcame them. So my biggest challenge was in finding the supervisor, because this is the first step, as we all of us know. But since I was very particular that I would like to work on the genetics of hair shape, so in fact, in the realm of phenotypic traits, I was even more specific, and that made it even more difficult to find a supervisor, because there are very few people who would like to work on who are population geneticists and would be again interested on human phenotypes. So I think wrote many emails. I did not, sometimes I would not get reply, but I would not get depressed, but I would like to again write more. How I would approach them is I would for each research proposal, like not the exact proposal, but exactly what I would like to go on, like an idea put forward.
Sorry to intervene.
Yeah.
There is some interference with your. Yeah, sorry. There's an interference with your network. Maybe if you switch off the camera, maybe that could help for the time being.
Okay. I'll do that.
Yeah, it's much better now. Yeah, you were with the finding the challenges.
Sorry
of finding.
About that.
Yeah. No, can happen. You were talking about the challenges of the supervisor, finding a supervisor, and
so I had very hard time finding a supervisor, because I was emailing, and because I had a very narrow subject area on which I wanted to work in my postdoctoral fellowship. So I had an initial contact made in 2014, the year before the application. So I just tried to follow it up, and then I also had through emails contact through one of the supervisors in IGMM, who then introduced to my supervisor whom I was going to write the proposal. And finally, because they hadn't met me in person, so they thought that it would be good if I would go to Edinburgh and present my research there, whatever in my PhD I have done, and that would help them to decide to go further with the writing up the proposal. And then the next step would be getting acquainted with the forms and the guidelines. So as you already heard before, it's very, very important to read the guidelines very carefully and to give time to read them every now and then, because there are very, very minute details in there. It's a very extensive guidelines that has been written, and everything has been written there very clearly. So I would really suggest you to go through it before you even start writing the proposal. And then I also got an opportunity to attend a one-day intensive training. It was very, very useful for me. I would like to hold on to it for very much for my success in my MSCA fellowship. So that was held or organized by the Estonian Research Council and also the National Contact Point for the Marie Curie. And this one-day training was literally like a 9 to 5 p.m. training, but it very well gave me the idea of what to write and how to write, or basically gave me the confidence that yes, it is doable. Then you should decide the layout of the proposal, basically the methods, the timeline, and the feasibility. And for this, you can either contact the supervisor over the email, or it can be also useful to have a Skype meeting, because you can then, address all the questions together in one go, rather than, because they are also very busy. So what I did was I interacted with them through Skype, because due to visa and everything, it was only in August that I could formalize my trip to Edinburgh. And by that time, if I would wait for that trip to happen and then write the proposal, it would have been too late. So I had already started working on the application, and I made the visit in August. So if you have an opportunity to contact beforehand and make a visit, I think it is very nice, because you get to know where you will be working, how much support you will be getting, how enthusiastic is your supervisor about your proposal, and you will also get to know the place you will be working, and what opportunities you will be getting there. So I went and presented my PhD research, and then I had one-to-one interaction with many group leaders there, and then finally, I got a yes that I can move ahead with writing of the fellowship. So this MSCA proposal is different from other proposals. So it's not just the research proposal. So please pay heed to what it needs or what it requires, and none of the questions are overlapping, so make sure that your text isn't overlapping as well, and it's not repetitive, because every question has been put there for a reason. So and you should differentiate, as we got into the question and answer round, that you should differentiate early on what input you would be needing from the supervisor to write the proposal, and what you have in hand and what you do not have in hand. Because see, July and August is also the months of summer vacations, and like people may be out and may not be there answering the emails. So if you get those information, or you have this information in hand, then it might be easy in writing the proposal, and you'll not feel stuck at some point. And you should also agree on a deadline with your supervisor when you will be sharing your first draft, so that he or she has in mind early that you have that has allocated time for you to see or go through your proposal. And it's also important to identify the new skills you will be learning there. So for example, if you already have a background, or there have some expertise, then it's also important to identify what else you will be adding it to your scientific skill training. So and then once you have finished writing your proposal, another very important part is improving on the text, and this will also take some time, so you should allow some time also for it. So and you should basically choose also not only scientists from your own subject area, but also from outside your subject area, as that will help you getting the proper feedback, because it may be possible that it goes to a reviewer who may not be very much deep into your subject. So the proposal should be well written, so that it is being understandable for even a scientist who is not from your subject area. Also, for the submission of the proposal, a prior submission is recommended. As you know, when the deadline approaches, there is a lot of pressure, so it's it takes time to submit, and you don't want to lose your hard work which you have done all throughout these weeks. So so it's better to get your proposal submitted 1 or 2 days before the final deadline, at least. Even earlier the better. And I don't know if it's still available, but at my time there was an option of rewriting, which means like you have submitted, but if you kind of find any changes, or you do final some, I don't know, 1 or 2 line corrections, you can also submit it. That will take you to the advanced version, but the old version still remains there. So but that I would recommend only for very minor corrections, but not for the major corrections. So some glimpse onto the other sources of who.
Sorry, but Chandana, we are a bit running late, and we still have also
Okay.
Nana Sahib. So
Okay,
if you could kindly conclude your presentation, which is really very good, and we will also share your presentation with the participants afterwards.
yeah,
Sorry for that intervention.
no worries. So so we have other sources, so you can find from the Institute homepage about different departments and career development plans. And you can also contact the EU contact in your host institute, and they can also provide feedback on your application. And supervisor is definitely there for you for providing feedback for the different aspects apart from the fellowship proposal itself. Some last tips and suggestions: make sure you attend the intensive training if it's still available to you. If you have any preliminary data, please do include it. And details are important. For example, if you are telling that you're going to have a weekly review, or then you should mention that how many times you will be meeting your supervisor to have a check on your research. Make full use of the 5 pages of your CV, that is, include everything that you think is is beneficial for you. And you should identify your strengths very importantly, because it's all about you and it's about the fellow. You should use the shortest style for the reference to save space, and make use of pointers, bold and underline where needed, because the evaluators can be it would be very boring if it is like, but if you can highlight, then that will help them to focus on what is important. And you should know your weaknesses of application and how to address them. And you make sure that you put, if there is any risk about the project, then make sure that you're honest about your public proposal, and you state it, and you do have a plan B for it. And at the end of the day, I would say that it is you and you who are responsible for writing the application. It's the other majorly, and it's only a little part which is from the supervisor. And as soon as you get the information, that should get you going. So it is a lot of work, and you can always find it overwhelming, but I would say it is doable and worth it. So good luck with your proposals and crack it. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to, have questions even later over email. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Chandan, also for making your contact details available in case potential candidates want to get some more tips. And you have explained it very well. The benefits of this fellowship, and also your own journey in the application process, I think was very valuable. Thank you so much for that. And without further delay, I would like to ask Dr. Nana Sahib Thorat. I hope you're able to hear me, and you're able to put on your camera as well.
Yeah, I can hear you. I hope you are hearing me too.
We're hearing you. Is it possible for you to put the camera on as well?
Unfortunately, I can't find that option in my system. So I hope it will not bother if I just explain and without camera, because I'm using with the mobile.
Okay. Okay. So, well, we have a very nice picture of you on our website. So if those who want to also know how you look, they can go to the website. Let me just briefly tell that Dr. Nana Sahib is a 2 times Marie Curie fellow grantee. Right now, he's doing his research at the Medical Science Division, University of Oxford. And he also has been awarded the very prestigious European Commission's Innovation Radar Prize 2020. So we have really a very good example of an MSCA fellow here with us. Both of them are brilliant minds. And so Dr. Nana Sahib, the mic is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So as my previous speaker has mentioned about the how to find the supervisor, how to approach them, and then how to go into the proposal. So though I have 2-time Marie Curie Fellowship, I have been worked as a reviewer for 2 years, and probably this year as well. So I will make my talk as a reviewer point. So what they look and how to design on that way. So generally we have 3 reviewers for every proposal. Most of the time 2 are more expert in your idea, in your area. Sometimes one is not that much expert, but he is a neutral guy. So when expert reviews our proposal, he always looks your excellence part. So that is the part first. So where our idea, how we are going to convince the reviewer, that most important. So idea should be novel. It should be novel, but not be over ambitious. So sometimes we propose over ambitious idea. Always make that this proposal or the fellowship is for 2 years. So how we can, what we can achieve within 2 years, it must be constructive and constructive, not over ambitious. So excellence part must be well prepared. So when there is a non-expert reviewer comes, he always looks your impact part. So before that, I will tell you some points in excellence. So what they looks in excellence. So they looks your idea, exactly what are your work packages, what are your deliverables, milestones, and methodology. So what experiments you are going to do, or what data collection if you are from social science or humanities. So what type of data collection analysis is there? And if you are from language or others, so they will look what are the something new in the current scenario. So every expert, they looks that. In the second, they looks the two-way knowledge transfer. That is most important. So what two-way knowledge transfer? So the knowledge transfer between the host to the fellow and the knowledge transfer from fellow to the host. So I have the good example. Uh, uh, 2 years ago, one guy approached me and he has a first author science paper. And he want to go in the institute where, or the host who has already 6.5 nature and science. And then I advised don't go there because host is good. You are also good. You have science first author. There is a no good two-way knowledge transfer. So choose the lab where a host is not that much good or he has all expertise. And then he decided to go with the because he believed that host matters, and unfortunately he didn't get it because they commented on the two-way knowledge transfer. You have science paper, your host has more than 10 science nature paper, then what you will be going to achieve there? Another science paper? So this you have to always care about the CV and other things, that I have good CV, so I will approach the good host and then I will win it. No, this is not a factor. So this is most important, your idea and how you are implementing that work. So reviewer always looks in two-way knowledge transfer, how you are transferring your idea to the host and host to the fellow. Then it comes to your CV and the supervision of the host. So host has a funding, if he or she supported previously some Marie Curie fellows, he has a good skills to support such fellows, or he has awards, he or she has awards, he's active in some policy makings, like cost actions or national funding agency expert or some policy makings for the government. So that matters. So when you are writing about the host, always ask all these things from the host supervisor. Lastly, your CV comes in excellent part. So earlier it is just for 5 pages. Now from this year you can write as much you can. So there is no page limit for CV. So don't start CV with directly with your education or papers or something. Write something 2 para about yourself and write about the new type of CV. Now most of the reviewers or even Marie Curie ERC grants, now they are looking the, don't just make that you have highly published, highly impact factor journals. So try to convince them that you published in very specialized journals. So don't write the impact factors, it will not work. So this will come in excellence. Impact, that is most important. And I always prefer you have to score 5 out of 5 in impact, and it's very easy task. So how we can? So the first thing is you have to write, you have to find your weaknesses and strength, because Marie Curie is not meant to make some guy who is already strong and make his more strong. So Marie Curie is mean for the guy who is researcher is weak in some fields, might be in publication, might be in books, might be in invention, patents. And with the support from Marie Curie, we have to make him a stronger guy. So he will make his own group in future. So find your weaknesses, make a SWOT analysis, and convince reviewer that, oh, I have these strengths, I have these weaknesses, and with support from the Marie Curie, I will achieve something in my career. Well, in the second dissemination plan, now this year, Europe introduced the open science. So please check these policies on the website and write that policies. So how will keep your data open? How will you publish your papers in open access journals where you will reposit your accepted manuscript? So this must be there. The third is how you will disseminate and outreach your activities. So if you are working in social sciences, so please always make that you will approach the people or social events. There is no need to approach the scientist only, because social science research works for the humans. If you are a scientist in a very specific engineering field, like I work in the brain cancer, so I worked with the school children, women, others, because we have to disseminate these activities to the very specific audience. So choose the audience, choose the events. So you can check where is your host institute, and in that host institute, what type of dissemination activities all over the year, outreach activities, or in these cities or in these countries. So that works. In the implementation, the most important is how your experimental plan work. So how you are going to design your work packages, what are tasks of these work packages, what are deliverables, milestones. So every work package must have one or two maximum deliverables and only one milestone, and some 5-6 tasks. And it should not be over ambitious, because here is the clear picture. Every reviewer will look the experimental plan, data analysis plan, data collection plan looks ambitious or is well planned. Then the contingency plan. So in contingency plan, you have to find the what glitches you will or your hurdles over the time when you were implementing your project. Scientific glitches. There are some technical as well, support from the instrument scientist, support from the host institute, or there might be a problem from the COVID as well. So you have to address now these issues. And at the end, the last point is what is the host infrastructure? So how they will be support you. So write all about your how finance management will work, how IPR management will work, how you will there is one more and very interesting. Most of the proposals, they don't write this issue, conflict management between your group, your supervisor, and you. So always mention that there will be a team from the head of department or your group members. So there will be no conflict, because when we work with some seniors, juniors, there is a conflict with our colleagues, might be sometime with our boss as well. So we need to manage, because this is one of the most hurdle to implement the project. Many Marie Curie fellows, after getting the fellowships, they have problem with host institute, they have problem with the host supervisors, they have problems with the colleagues, and because of that, we can't implement our proposal well. This is one of the risks of the proposal. So try to convince reviewer that you will make a good plan for such kind of conflict management, and this comes under the implementation. So all these are the very simple tricks. Even I have reviewed more than 25 proposals from last 2 years, and I always look this kind of points. Is they have a very good strength and weaknesses by fellows? Is there a very well conflict and IPR management team is there, or financial management team is there? How host institute will support for your visa? Suppose if you are going from India to Poland, where I face a lot issues with the visa issue. So how your host institute will support you? Like UK, it is very straightforward for visa, or Germany is very straightforward. But some countries have bureaucratics. They need many documents. They take a time. So we have to explain these in the good hosting arrangements in the part 1. So all these tricks works well, and not always your CV works, your publication work, and not always host work. I know many Nobel laureates, they didn't get the MSCA fellows, because it doesn't matter. The guy is big means you will get it. it matters how you will improve your skills, how you will advance your career on next level, and along with where you are placed in any host institute, how this group will work, how this group will advance their research with from your support as well. So this is a two-way knowledge transfer. So both matters, and not only CV and the host supervisor. So I hope this finds you well. And due to the time limit, I will stop here, and I would be happy to answer questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nana Sahib. Especially you gave a very good perspective from the reviewer's point of view. I think that's also incredible asset we have with you, that you not only have been an applicant, a successful applicant, but you also been reviewing proposals. So you gave us a very good idea what the reviewer is looking, and also the two-way transfer of knowledge, how important that is. I'm very sorry, due to time constraints, we are beyond our 2 hours limit of the webinar, and has been a long afternoon, but I think a very, very good, very informative. I would like to ask the other presenters please to come back on the screen so that the audience can see you one more time, and also gives me the opportunity to thank all of you, all three who are here on the screen, plus also Nana Sahib. If there are any questions which we could not answer, if you have any questions to Dr. Chandana or Dr. Nana Sahib, you can send them to us at india@euraxis.net, and we will forward those questions to them, and we will try to help you, to guide you through your questions. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and thanks again to our speakers for giving us this valuable time and your insights. And I believe that those of you who have joined today are a step further, and maybe also even more confident now in preparing your application for the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship. As promised, we will send you a follow-up email with the link to the recording and also the presentations of today's speakers. With that, I say goodbye, good luck to those of you who are working. You still have more than a month, and I think you will be now very inspired to continue working on your dream project and get those grant cracked. And wish you all a nice afternoon here in India, a nice lunch break in Austria, Mittagspause in Austria. And yeah, thank you so much for joining, and take good care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.